friends. I was about to go to sleep and then I heard very loud trust and surrender. And let's talk about trust and surrender. When you choose to walk the path of spirit, and if you have this interest in spirituality, you might have heard trust and surrender, trust and surrender. What does this mean? It means to trust spirit, trust your inner guidance, trust your intuition, and surrender, which surrender is not a passive thing at all. It doesn't mean to do nothing and you're just floating down this river, but it means to sometimes, yeah, do nothing and float down the river in the sense of you have to surrender your old self. Because if you're following the path of spirit, it's something that is very alive. Imagine it like you're floating down a river. And if you're trying to hold on to a certain side and people from the past and certain spot of the river, and you begin to cling to it, then the flow and the current wants to take you further down the river. But because you're not willing to let go, you're not willing to surrender, you can't float. And sometimes what we do is we'll actually paddle against the current of the river just because we don't want to let go. And a lot of times it's not just an external thing, let's say a job or a relationship or a location, but that external thing is linked to an internal image of ourselves. And that's where it gets really deep and tricky when we start to go into the psyche and realize, wait a minute, why am I holding on to this relationship that I know doesn't serve me any longer? And I know that I'm putting in more work and I'm not getting reciprocity. Why am I holding on to this? And then you start to dig deeper and deeper and deeper and see how you're repeating a childhood pattern if you go that far. And then you have to do the forgiveness work if you keep going. And there's, like a Pandora's box after Pandora's box opening. Hi, Tony. And you realize, whoa, this goes really far if you're looking to, if you're willing to go that deep. Uh, and that's what happens when we actually let go and trust and surrender. And the river is taking us inward and showing us all of these things, and we get to see where the pattern originated. And sometimes, it's taking us even deeper and we see how it's an ancestral pattern, and sometimes it's taking us even deeper and we start to see past lives. And we constantly need to surrender the idea of who we thought we were and how we thought life is supposed to be, and let it go and allow it to just vanish and embody a new image of self. And it's this continual process of death and rebirth. And while you're in between, you have to trust that even though you're not seeing the path clearly in front of you, the river is taking you exactly where you need to be. And that even though sometimes you are in the middle of big rapids and you're like, am I gonna make it? And you're gasping for air, you have to trust and surrender. And when you trust and truly surrender, you float and you can never sink. You just need to allow whatever's happening to happen. And if you relax, it's so much easier because you're floating. And uh, it just becomes this like embracing the journey and beginning to enjoy it. And being okay with things being slow at times and then things speeding up rapidly at times. And um, it's like this mysterious adventure if you're willing to keep trusting and surrendering. And at one point, you can be like, you know what, I'm tired. And you can pause somewhere and then decide, okay, I'm ready for another go at this. Uh, but the thing is that when you trust and surrender, things are always new. And that idea of fixed identity begins to disappear because you begin to expand so much. And then we get to firstly be like water. And all of a sudden, you start to become one with the elements, and you realize, wow, there's nothing to fear because I am the water. And you begin to see this inner harmony underlying everything and the oneness that exists and that you are. And the more you expand, the more you expand, and you always go through the contraction before the expansion. Uh, and if you keep trusting and surrendering, the beauty is that you never know how far you can go, Moana. But because you learn to enjoy it and actually remember that this is how it's supposed to be, you keep going and you keep going and you keep going um, into the unknown, into the spontaneous flow, uh, into more of who you are.